Hello friends, welcome to the Cold War Prepper. My name is Lee. Today we're going to do something a little bit more lighthearted and to try to take our focus away from all the other troubles that there are out there. But at the same time, it is kind of prepper related because we're talking about water purification in a special kind of way. If we go back to the Egyptian pyramids, you'll find that there was beer there. If we go back to the ancient Hebrews, if we go back to the time of Jesus, to the time of Rome, what we'll find is that wine was the most common way of drinking fluids. Now, remember, there's a prepper adage, and it says you never know what's happening upstream. Okay, so that's why we want water purified. So that's what people did back in the old days. They could either ferment it or they could distill it. Now, distilling is nothing more than boiling, turning it into steam, and then bringing it back down. And the distillation process is a purification process. Now, if you do the combination of the two, you turn it into a spirit. So you can ferment it, then distill it, and then that turns it into a spirit or a whiskey. But today we're going to be focusing on wine, which is probably one of the oldest drinks there are. Primarily made from grapes. It comes in two types. So it's either going to be a varietal, which means you're buying the bottle because of the variety of grape that is in that bottle that's being used to make the wine, or it's going to be a blend. So, of course, the most famous French blend is Burgundy, and the most famous Italian blend is Chianti. Now, just a little aside, this is kind of interesting trivia, but the major grape in Chianti is a Sangiovese. So Sangiovese means the blood of Zeus. And so the old Italian folklore says Zeus was walking across Italy, got thirsty, stabbed his leg with his sword, took the blood from his leg and drank it so that he could survive, and some of it dropped on the earth as he was walking. So wherever that blood dropped on the earth is where the Sangiovese grape just popped up out of the earth. So it's called the blood of Zeus. But anyhow, that's kind of interesting. Totally aside. Okay, so the varieties. Germany, number one in white wines. The U.S. is coming up with Chardonnay. We've also got some fantastic Zinfandels, which is the darkest of all the reds. Australia is coming up with some fantastic reds and whites, and so is New Zealand. Peru, Argentina, South America, they have some fantastic varieties. Nothing like moving and kicking your mic off. And but today we're going to focus on Germany. So I've got 9 years serving in Germany, and I will tell you, I think Germany is famous for its 5 letters, and so that's B, B, C, E, W. So bread, beer, cheese, engineering, and white wine. Those are the 5 things that, in my opinion, nobody else can compete with Germany on. Just love everything they do in those 5 categories. So today we're going to be focusing on the 5th one, the white wine. So there are 5 things that are mandatory by German law that have to be on a bottle of wine consumed in Germany. Now, varietal is the predominant way that it's going to be served in Germany. The mixes are going to be primarily for export. And the most famous here in the U.S. is Blue Nun. So the first thing you're going to find is what year it was produced or fermented. You're going to find the name of the producer, so that's down here, the Urban Estates, Joseph Urban. You're going to find where it was produced. So here it's the Mosel Valley, and you're going to find the type of grape, which is right here, and then you're going to find the sugar content or alcohol content, which is here. Now, sometimes you're going to find a 3 letters to say OBV, and that's going to be your basic alcohol volume as far as the percentage of alcohol. But that's not mandatory. So this one does not have the German classification. It's on the back because this is for export. So back here it's got the qualification, which means that it's a Qualitätswein mit Prädikat. So it's a quality wine with special qualifiers, and that's the Spätlese that's here. So let's go into the German grapes. The most famous, of course, is the Riesling, which, except for Moscato, is their sweetest. And then as we go down and towards the more dry grapes, it's going to be Moscato, Riesling, Müller-Thurgau, which is my favorite, along with Gewürztraminer, which is next. The Grauburgunder, which is equal to a Pinot Grigio. The Sylvaner. Sylvaner's starting to get a little bit more towards the chalky, dry side. The Weissburgunder, which is the Pinot Blanc, and then the Kerner. So those are the predominant grapes. Now there are about 20 different varieties of grapes that are grown in Germany, but those are going to make up about 85% of what's grown in Germany. Then the next thing is telling what the sweetness is, or the alcohol content. So remember, you start off with the grape, and it has some inherent sweetness in and of itself, or sugar content. And then the longer that you ferment it, the more that the sweet sugar in the grapes turns to alcohol. So as you get more dry, you get a higher alcohol content. As you get more sweet, you have a less alcohol content. So in the quality wines with special qualifiers, the lowest, the driest that they're going to have of quality wines is going to be the Cabernet. And it gets its name from the fact that this is what they consider to be the perfect wine for drinking in Germany. So the head of that vineyard is going to pull that bottle, and he's going to keep it for his own Cabernet. So that's why it's called Cabernet. Then if you pick it a little bit later than that, it's going to be called the Spätlese, which is what I picked up here. You can see that down here. And then so that means late picking, Spätlese. And then if you're going to pick the grapes out of season, then it's going to be Auslese. So that's going to, the grapes have been on the vine a little bit longer. They're going to be a little bit sweeter, have a little bit more of an alcohol, of a sugar content to them because they were picked late in the season. And then from there you can go into the Barren Ausleses, which is now it's starting to shrivel a little bit. It's really late in the season. And then of course you've got the Trockenbeeren Auslese, which is the sweetest of the natural fermentations. And that's going to be where they wait so long that the grape turns into a raisin, basically. And so that's got very high sugar content. And so it's going to be a very sweet, low alcohol content wine that you're going to drink. Now, the most famous dessert wine that the Germans have is they're trying to get a Trockenbeeren Auslese, but an abnormally early frost comes, and so those things that they're trying to get to turn into raisins get frozen on the vine. And when they freeze on the vine like that, then all of the sugary juice on the inside turns to ice. And they take that and crush it and gather the juice and ferment it, and that becomes ice vine. Now, typically, a bottle of ice vine, it's only going to be maybe, every 10 years, 15 years. It's going to be very sweet, low alcohol content, a dessert wine, usually with ice cream or something like that. But very, very expensive because it's so rare. But anyhow, so remember that two of the early ways of purifying water for SHTF scenarios was distillation and fermentation. And so today we talked about fermentation and how to read a German wine label. So hope you all learned something from that and get something a little bit more pleasant than the normal. I do want to encourage you to read The Naked Communist. And so I'm going to read to you the first, I don't want to violate any copyright laws. I really want you to buy his book, but I'm going to read the first three goals of the Communist Party USA as Cleon Skousen discovered back in 1940s. And number one, U.S. acceptance of coexistence as the only alternative to atomic war. Number two, U.S. willingness to capitulate in preference to engaging in atomic war. And number three, develop the illusion that total disarmament of the United States would be a demonstration of moral strength. So I would like for you to just take those three, think about how that relates to what we have going on in the world right now. And if that doesn't convince you that this is a book you need to have in your library, then I'll do another three some point in the future. But this is Lee, the Cold War Prepper. Remember, we're all in this together, so we can come out the other side together. Take care. Bye-bye.